And we're ready to go.
All right, Paul, thank you for that welcome. It's good to feel that energy. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Grad School 101, Financial Aid for PhD Students. This presentation is specifically designed for newly admitted and current PhD students in the Rackham Graduate School, and we hope to help you navigate the often complex world of graduate funding. Again, my name is Adam Lucier. I'm the Assistant Director for Rackham Finance and Fellowships Office here at Rackham. And over the next few minutes, I will be your guide through the financial landscape of graduate education at U of M. Let's start with expenses. We'll kind of start with the worst part first here. When planning for your program, it is essential that you plan for all of your expenses to maintain your financial stability and keep a good financial wellness check of what's going on in your life. So, let's break down some of the potential costs in a few different categories here. One of them is academic expenses. This is kind of obvious, right? Your tuition, your mandatory fees, your books, maybe research materials, your living expenses, housing, utilities, food, groceries, personal activities, and then don't forget the additional costs. These are things like moving expenses, family obligations, childcare, the other things that sometimes we don't really think of as educational expenses, but are essential educational expenses because your family is with you here in Ann Arbor. To give you an idea of what estimated budget looks like for a full-time graduate student, we can see that little snip in the slide there. Um, you don't really need to pay too much attention to this unless you're kind of taking out loans and things like this, because the federal aid that you take out through FAFSA would have to fit into this cost of attendance with whatever aid you're getting from your academic program, whether that's a fellowship or GSI position, things like that. So to give you an idea of what the estimated cost is, about 60,000 for a Michigan resident, for out-of-state resident, about $90,000. And that includes everything that the university can think of. And the reason that I can say can think of is because if you do have expenses that aren't typical or maybe not included in your this cost of attendance that the university sets forth, then you can talk to the Office of Financial Aid. They have advisors there, and you can maybe do what's called a budget reevaluation, which will allow them to maybe increase your cost of attendance or your budget here to account for other expenses that you might have. So sometimes that might be things like childcare costs. As you can see, childcare costs are not included in this cost of attendance in this budget. So you'd want to talk to the Office of Financial Aid if you're hoping to take out loans or things like that, work study, to help cover those additional costs that you might have that aren't included in their costs. So how are you going to pay for it? So graduate funding is much different than undergraduate funding. Um, while undergraduate funding, a lot of it is federal and institutional aid, graduate funding often comes from a variety of different external sources and things like research grants, dissertation grants. A lot of the graduate funding is going to be merit-based or academic-based, not based on financial need as much as it is for undergraduate students. A lot of funding is connected to work. So many opportunities are going to be tied directly to employment at the university, such as teaching, research, or administrative duties. And then there's also field-specific variation. So the type and amount of funding can vary dramatically depending on your field of study or even within your specific graduate program. So let's dive deeper into some of the common types of work-connected funding. These positions not only provide financial support, but also a lot of valuable professional experience for students also. So GSI positions at the university, these are going to be more teaching positions, teaching undergraduate courses, leading labs, maybe assisting with grading, exams. These appointments typically provide tuition coverage along with a monthly stipend and health insurance. GSRA position, these positions are going to be typically like research assistant positions where you're going to work on research projects, often directly tied are related to your own thesis or dissertation topics in a lot of situations. And this funding is typically provided through faculty research grants in a lot of situations. And then there's GSSA positions. These are administrative positions. They support various university, state, federal projects. Rackham Graduate School actually has some GSSAs along with a lot of the academic programs. It's another type of work-connected funding that can be a great option for PhD students also. One way that you can find I have the link there for careers.umich.edu. If you just go to Google and type in UMich student employment, it'll come up with the student employment webpage. And there you'll be able to sort based on work study jobs, non-work study jobs, GSI positions, and so forth. One of the best connections, though, for PhD students is definitely going to be your faculty advisor in your home academic program. While you can search around on the student employment website, if you're really looking for something tied to your research and your specific program, it really would be best to talk to your faculty advisor and your graduate coordinator. So your funding needs and opportunities will likely change throughout your academic career. You should have received an offer of admission from your academic program, and that's where you're going to see the funding that your program has offered you as part of your admission. Um, Pre-candidates in your first few years while you're completing coursework, you'll likely be funded through a mix of departmental fellowships, GSI, GSRA positions, sometimes external grant programs. As a candidate, once you've achieved candidacy, a lot of the funding becomes more research focused. And this is where you'll have opportunities for dissertation fellowships, maybe more specialized research grant fellowships. In the dissertation phase, this is the final stretch of your PhD. Funding often comes from dedicated dissertation fellowships, completion grants, writing support to help you finish your degree. And these are generalized statements. Your specific funding package will always be your specific funding package, and it's always good to stay close contact with your graduate coordinator. That's going to be the person at the university that's really responsible for administering and helping you navigate through your funding journey through your 5 to 7 years of your PhD program. So what can funding cover? Funding can obviously cover tuition and fees, stipend and salary. This is a crucial component. This is a monthly living allowance that hopefully will cover your housing, food, and other personal expenses. The stipend level that Rackham Graduate School uses is the equivalent to a 0.25 employment position for this year. That's basically like a 10-hour work position. I'm sorry, I take that back. It's a point 0.5. I'm sorry about that. It's a point 0.5. So that's a 20-hour work position. So if you're on a Rackham fellowship throughout your journey, such as a Rackham predoctoral, a Rackham merit fellowship, those are always going to be 0.5, the established stipend level. For insurance, we refer to that as grad care here. That does include dental and sometimes for your dependents also. So make sure that if you have grad care, you'll be getting emails from academic HR, human resources that kind of give you notifications of when and where you need to sign up for different things. If you need to sign up your dependents, you're going to be getting emails from human resources, so make sure to keep an eye out for those. Some funding will provide money to help you present your research at academic conferences. Some funding is for research, can cover equipment, software, materials, maybe. And then some funding can also cover professional development opportunities for workshops, specialized training. Really kind of across the board, there's a lot of different resources and opportunities for PhD students here at Michigan. There's also a lot of funding sources for emergency assistance too. Emergency assistance can be found in a lot of different places at the university, all the way from the Dean of Students office to CEW, which is the Center for Education for Women. Rackham Graduate School has an emergency fund, and a lot of academic programs also have emergency assistance. So if life throws you a curveball, know that there are a lot of different emergency resources around campus to help you out. All right. So some online resources. This is a really, really great website, and I encourage you to bookmark this. This is basically the library guide for student funding at the University of Michigan. If you don't want to write down the link, I love to Google things. I go to Google and I type in UMich library funding, and it comes right up. And that website is comprehensive. It's always updated. And I'd say most of the opportunities have been vetted by someone at the university. So they're not going to have any kind of scams or things that are just going to waste your time writing essays or applying for things. It is a great website. It also has links for like external databases. for like STEM students, for NSF. And then it's even got some resources on there for like other schools that have great fellowship search engines also. So there's one called Grapes for UCLA. There's one on there for Duke University has a great search tool also. And all of that's going to be linked on that library student funding page. And then if you scroll down at the bottom, you'll also see that they also have people that will assist you with grant applications and things like that. So you can set up advising appointments with the library student funding people also. All right. And then as far as like university-based funding resources, the Rackham website is going to be a great hub for information about Rackham opportunities, Rackham grants, Rackham fellowships. You'll also be receiving a graduate student newsletter that I encourage you to take a look at. If you scroll down to the bottom of the newsletter that comes out, it'll have like upcoming deadline dates and even tell you like what are ongoing awards. So it might say like travel grants are ongoing. That means that you can apply for a travel grant anytime during the year. We accept those applications 24/7, just like our emergency grants and research grants. So just take a look at the newsletter, check out our website. Also, one of the tools that is really helpful for students is the Rackham disbursement calendar. Google Rackham disbursement calendar, it'll come right up. That gives you an idea if you're on a Rackham fellowship of when you're going to get your money, which is important, right? That gives you the dates. If you're on a non-Rackham fellowship, so something that might be administered through your home program, or you're on a GSI position or something like that, those dates are not your dates. Those dates are just for Rackham fellowships. So you would want to talk to your academic program about when they are paying their stipends, because there can be different schedules based on how they set up the grants for you. Again, the library, I mentioned that earlier, we have it here also because it is just really an extensive database and the resource that we first point students to. The Office of Financial Aid is also a great place if you have any questions about student loans, work study, financial wellness, financial literacy. They have a lot of great resources over there for anything having to do with like federal financial aid. Your department is also going to be one of your most valuable resources. As I mentioned earlier, your graduate coordinator is in charge of administering and keeping track of your funding during your career. So stay in close contact with that graduate coordinator. And of course, your faculty advisor, faculty mentor are also going to be great connections to talk about opportunities, and also to help you network with graduate students that might have gotten aid that's specific to your program in the past. So your program is going to be very important for finding those resources. One recommendation that we have is we like tell students like there's going to be so much with deadlines and essays and everything that you need to submit. Maybe start an Excel sheet or like a Google Calendar where you can start putting in application deadlines with like notifications like 15 days ahead or 30 days ahead so that you can make sure to keep track of deadlines so that you don't find yourself like, oh crap, I'm right the night before a deadline for this fellowship application, and then you've got other exams or other things going on too. It just adds stress. So stay organized and plan using like Excel or a Google Calendar. Let's see. So next up, understanding the terms of your award. So always make sure to understand that the fine print and the terms of your awards. So like one example, some awards are only going to be for like one term, one semester. Some awards might be for a full academic year. Some awards might say they're a 12-month award, but that 12 months might not correspond with our academic year, 12 months. So always make sure that you talk to your graduate coordinator if you're looking at an external fellowship and you see how that can build into your existing financial package that they've already offered you. Does it cover tuition? Does it provide a full stipend, a partial stipend? Does it provide health insurance? Does it provide some combination thereof? So definitely make sure to talk to your graduate coordinator and get all of that organized. Also, make sure you're aware of any academic requirements, minimum enrollment credits, progress reports. Some fellowships have progress reports that have to be submitted quarterly or yearly. Make sure to understand if there's any work obligations or work limits. Sometimes there will be fellowships, external and within the university, that tell you you can only work a certain amount of hours per week. And why do they do that? Because they want you to focus on your degree first and then have those work hours second. So, for instance, if you're on the NSF GRFP, we do limit students to 10 hours per week, which is the equivalent of a 0.25 GSI or GSR appointment. Award limitations. So check if the funding has any restrictions on additional employment. We just talked about those like additional employment. We call it supplemental employment rules. There's also some fellowships won't let you do what's called double dipping, meaning have two fellowships at the same time that are, massive fellowships. And why is that? Well, so that we and fellowship providers can divide resources as evenly as possible amongst PhD students. So when one student's getting two full fellowships, then another student's not getting a fellowship. Don't hesitate to look for additional funding sources for specific needs like travel, conferences, research expenses. So a lot of times your primary fellowship, your primary funding might not cover those, but in a lot of situations around the university or in your program, there are going to be funds for those things like travel and research. Make sure to always future plan, look ahead. Can awards be deferred? Can they be combined with other funding? Can they be renewed for additional years? And are they eligible for Rackham cost share support? Rackham cost share support isn't something that you really need to concern yourself with too much, but I do want you to be aware of what it is. So if you find an external fellowship that doesn't cover a full funding package for that semester or for that year, so let's say it's maybe 50% tuition and it's a partial stipend and it doesn't provide health insurance. Well, don't worry, there may be a mechanism through your program in Rackham where we basically share the cost of the shortfall in that fellowship to help bring you up to a full funding package. So don't be discouraged if you do find an external award that isn't a full funding package and you're like, oh, there's no way I could survive on that stipend that they're offering me. Check with your program. They'll then check with us to see if Rackham would be willing to cost share to bring you up to a full funding package. Single best resource again for navigating these complexities is your graduate coordinator. I've said that word graduate coordinator so many times here today, so you're probably getting tired of it, but that really is going to be your best source when it comes to administering and keeping track of all these things. So this is kind of an Office of Financial Aid caveat, but this is important for PhD students because PhD students are so fully funded with tuition, stipend, and health insurance that a lot of times your cost of attendance that the Office of Financial Aid looks at is going to look like you are receiving a ton of money towards your cost of attendance, which is going to really limit the amount that you can take out in a student loan or possibly be eligible for in what they have as a child care subsidy, which is also a need-based program through the Office of Financial Aid for parents with children. So if you are offered additional aid or you haven't reported all your aid to the Office of Financial Aid and you have a loan, then your loan could potentially be reduced if you do receive additional funding. So the key thing to know here is if you've submitted a FAFSA, if you're taking out student loans, talk to the Office of Financial Aid about your financial aid package for the year. Be upfront with them, tell them how much money you're getting over the course of the year. Hey, I'm getting a fellowship for the fall and winter, and then the spring and summer, I'm getting a full stipend because they need to build that into your package to make sure you're not being over awarded. So the federal government does not allow you to receive more money than your cost of attendance. So they limit you to your cost of attendance. So that goes back to what we were talking about a long time ago with the budget reevaluation. So if you have expenses that aren't being accounted for in your cost of attendance, talk to the Office of Financial Aid so they can increase your budget to allow everything to try to fit into your package so that you don't see any reductions of federal aid. Okay. So the fellowships office, that's us, the Rackham Fellowship Finance and Fellowships Office. We administer Rackham Graduate School Fellowship programs, and we manage other select grants that are on our website. So if you go to the Rackham funding page, you'll see the Rackham Fellowships that we administer. We are only a team of 3, and there are 120 academic programs. So unfortunately, we aren't responsible for like administering every single Rackham graduate student's like financial aid. So if you call us or email us, we may have no idea what funding you're on or what funding you're supposed to be on in year 2 or year 3. And that's because your graduate coordinator is going to be that person that knows all of that stuff about your individual and your specific PhD funding situation. But we do have a ton of opportunities. I'm going to show you some a little bit later about all the different Rackham fellowships and grants that we do administer. We also administer the NSF GRFP program and provide cost share support, as mentioned earlier, to a lot of other external fellowships that students receive. We also provide direct funding to academic programs to support students. And we also provide a lot of summer research programs and initiatives through Rackham. And just a little caveat that we threw on there because we had some space. Set up direct deposit. You will get your money a lot faster and more secure. All right, and next up, so when we're looking at our funding opportunities, like if you go to our funding page, you'll see that there's application awards and then there's nomination awards. It is what it is. The application awards are going to be ones that students apply for, and the nomination awards are going to be ones that you have to be nominated by your academic program. So definitely talk to your academic program about their specific nomination processes. Some departments may have like internal competitions before you're nominated for the Rackham Graduate School nomination process. So if you're interested in one of those ones that's listed on our website that says it's nomination based, reach out to your program and see how they process those nominations and send those off to Rackham. Specialized funding, a lot of different opportunities from travel, research, emergency grants, professional development awards, and I'll show you kind of some of those in a little bit here. And just important to remember that we do not award funds directly to incoming students. So your initial funding package is what your program offered you as in your offer letter. And so Rackham would not come in and say, we're changing your funding package for year 1. Your funding package is what your offer of admission said from your academic program. So to give you an idea of what's available through Rackham Graduate School, I've categorized some of these into research support, travel and professional development, and some dissertation and merit awards, and then some additional support programs that we offer. So we have humanities research fellowships. We have the RIRA, which is the Rackham International Research Award. We have research grants, which are very popular. Our most popular program is probably our Rackham Conference Travel Grants. This provides $900 for domestic travel and up to $1,400 for international travel locations. And this allows you to present your research or poster at conferences, or if you're on a panel, or if you're a music student doing performances somewhere. Rackham provides support in one travel grant per fiscal year. So if you're here for 5 years, you could potentially receive 5 travel grants over your PhD career. We also have a professional development grant, and this is for specifically gaining a skill. So things like maybe going to a workshop to gain leadership skills, or if you're a humanities student, maybe going to something to learn about data analysis. And so it's always, they have to be gaining some specific skill. So it's not for just attending a conference or something like that. Um, the predoctoral fellowship is, I would say, the most prestigious Rackham award. And this is for candidates that are approaching finishing their degrees. And it provides full 12 months of funding, tuition, stipend, and grad care for the full 12 months. So this is very valuable for candidates as they're approaching finishing their degree because you don't have to worry about working or anything like that. It's a very prestigious award, and there's a really nice ceremony here at Rackham and everything like that. The Rackham Merit Fellowship is one of our larger programs, and that's for entering PhD students. It's a recruiting award, so you would have already known if you're an RMF student upon your admission. The Barber Scholarship is part of the Rackham Predoctoral Fellowship competition. So if you do see the Barber Scholarship, basically you would just need to be nominated into the Predoctoral Fellowship competition, and you would be considered automatically for the Barber, which is also a very prestigious award that goes back many, many years. The Rackham Graduate Student Emergency Fund, crucial resource if you find yourself in an emergency, which I hope you never do. but it is there as a stopgap. It provides up to $2,500, and you can receive that 2 times during your PhD career. We also have a debt management award for PhD students. So if you have student loans and you're accumulating interest, you do have to be accumulating interest on those, unfortunately, but that is a great award for students to help manage student loan debt. The King Chavez Park is a state of Michigan program, and this is for students that are interested in continuing to be a faculty and underrepresented, but it is only for state of Michigan students. Radcliffe Ramsdell is for students pursuing advanced religious studies. And so if you are pursuing any kind of advanced religious studies at the university, I want to put a plug in for that because we hardly receive any applications for this. So if you have any questions about the Radcliffe Ramsdell, please contact us because we'd love to award that money. Shapiro-Malik Forrest Awards. These awards are another kind of debt management awards. So definitely check those out on our website. All right. Well, I am at the end of my formal presentation. I hope you guys have some questions. I know I threw out a lot of different information, but I hope you know that, or I hope it came across that there's a lot of different resources on campus, a lot of support for PhD students. Within the last, might have been 3 years, but maybe 2 years, we've instituted 12-month funding. So that's been a big initiative here at Rackham Graduate School. So you guys are the beneficiaries now of that. So a lot of academic programs previously weren't able to provide 12 months of stipend support, but now everyone is getting 12 months of stipend support through your offer letter of admission. So that is a great change, and I hope that has a positive effect on you also. So our email address is here, rackhamff@umich.edu. Feel free to shoot us an email. And then we also have our link to our funding page there that you'll see all that huge list of opportunities.
Adam, there's one question in the chat currently from not a first-year student. Students starting their 7th year of PhD and have never applied for a fellowship and have never received one, of course. They were wondering if they could apply at this stage. Is it ever too late to apply to a fellowship, or what are things they should look at, students should look at when looking at fellowships in their later career?
Yeah. So as far as like the Rackham fellowships goes, there's not a lot that like really come to mind for students in their 7th year. The predoctoral fellowship is something that you would want to talk to your program about to see if they have a nomination process for that. And then some programs also have like special allocations of fellowships that they use for students. I imagine you probably would have already talked to your academic program, and so they may have already told you that they don't have those available. Um, so a lot of students in like 7th year are going to be looking at employment positions. Some students will take out student loans. And then, of course, there are some students that do find some external fellowship funding. I wish I had some that I could really kind of direct you to or guide you to, but I don't have any that are really coming to mind. I would say talk to your graduate coordinator. They probably know your situation, but explain your situation again and just say like, look, are there any funds or fellowships that maybe past students have received in our program specifically? And maybe try to like target those versus maybe more broad fellowships.
Great. And as people are starting to type here in the chat, a reminder, we put an evaluation link here. So if you could give us an evaluation of today's program and suggestions for future programs, we would appreciate that. And Danielle will put that back in the chat here as well. Question here in the chat, is there a specific amount of the maximum funds that PhD students can receive? I wonder this because I heard that my external fellowship may reduce the coverage of existing funding package due to that limit.
Yeah. So we do allow students, if you're on a Rackham fellowship, so this is specifically just for Rackham fellowships. I can't speak to like kind of rules and regulations that your department or your program may have like specifically on your funding package. So talk to your graduate coordinator. But if you're on a Rackham specific fellowship that's administered by Rackham, then we allow students to receive 150% of what we call the established stipend level for the year. The established stipend level for this year is 14,500. 888. Leah, I have my colleague Leah. She might get the last two numbers.
14,596.
Thank you. So that is the amount of the stipend. And so you can receive another 50% on top of that. So if you have an external fellowship that is already providing a full stipend of that 14,596, then you can get another 50% in the Rackham stipend. But you just can't go above 150% of the established stipend level. But again, if you're on departmental funding, talk to your program. They may have a different rule or something like that that says a different kind of limit. So not everybody follows Rackham Graduate School, what we do here in our office. Good question, though. That comes up a lot for sure. A lot of times you can also defer funding. So as another option, sometimes you can defer that external fellowship to maybe a year or term where your department's asking you to work or be employed. Or sometimes there's the option of deferring Rackham fellowships too. A lot less likely with Rackham fellowships because typically when we award fellowships, they're for a certain time period. But definitely worth asking if you find yourself in that situation. Paul, I think I might have heard you, but it's like almost muted or low volume.
That's
All right, let me see. I've got the chat here. Where are we at?
right at the bottom.
All right. May I ask, when do newly admitted PhD students usually receive their first stipend payment? Wonderful question. It really depends if you're on Rackham administered aid or if you're on departmental funding or an employment position. Let's just go through each one of those. If you're on a Rackham fellowship through the graduate school, Google Rackham stipend disbursement calendar. It's going to show you the disbursement dates. If you're on a departmental fellowship, so something that's being administered right through your academic program, reach out to your graduate coordinator. It could be the exact same as the Rackham stipend disbursement calendar, or it could be slightly different. We pay our payments in 5 payments. So we have an early payment, and then we pay 4 monthly payments over the 4 months of each term. So 5 payments over 4 months. Some programs will pay 4 payments over 4 months. And then if you're on an employment position, then you're paid based on the university's pay cycle. So just like I'm paid and Paul's paid, you're paid on the same kind of employment cycle that everyone else at the university is. So if you go to the human resource website, you can see the pay dates for the university for employment positions. Thank you for that link. Yeah, great. Thank you, Leah. Next question. In order to receive Rackham and departmental funding, do you only need to sign up for a direct deposit once? Yes, you do only need to sign up for direct deposit once, and that direct deposit will carry with you for your entire PhD career. So make sure you change that if anything changes with your bank account, because it's just going to keep going every single year right to the same account. Great question. Also, I'll throw out a caveat too about address. So this is not, if you don't do direct deposit, then you'll get paper checks in the mail, which I do not recommend. But also with just university mail, the university will use what's called your current address in Wolverine Access. And so when you go into your Wolverine Access, you'll have your student page. There's an address button. There's a permanent address and a current address. Your permanent address is a lot of times maybe where your home is, where you came from, or maybe you left it as your undergraduate address or something like that. That doesn't really matter as much as your current address does, because any university mail will be sent to your current address. So if your current address right now is still set up as your address at Stanford or something like that, then you need to go in and make sure to change your current address to your Ann Arbor address. Not a lot of mail goes out anymore, but I wouldn't want you to miss a piece of mail. Any other questions? Well, you know where to reach us, rackhamff@umich.edu. We're located in the bottom floor of the I almost said student services building, that's where I used to work, but the Rackham Graduate School. And we're right down there with the admissions office, and you can stop in. We're open from 9 to 4. And how do you update your current address? So if you go to Wolverine Access, which is our main like student administration system, that's where you'll see your bill. That's where you'll enroll for classes. Like you'll see a thing called Backpack, where you'll like backpack classes and stuff for next term. In there is where you can update address, phone number, email address, preferred name, things like that. Good question. All right. Well, I really appreciate everyone's time. Thank you for having us today. And we wish you the best of luck during your journey. And we hope that we can be of assistance sometime during your time here.